I was 12 years old when I got invited to spend the night at Tyler's house. It was the start of summer, and we had just finished the school year. Tyler lived a few streets over, near Willow Creek, in this old two-story house that always gave me an odd feeling whenever I passed by. I never mentioned it to anyone, but the house always seemed off. When Tyler handed me the handwritten invitation during recess, I hesitated for a second. Sleepovers were supposed to be fun, pizza, video games, ghost stories, but something in my gut twisted. Still, I didn't want to look like a coward, so I agreed. That Friday evening, I packed my backpack with extra clothes, a flashlight, and some snacks. My mom smiled, happy I was making new friends, and dropped me off in front of Tyler's place. As soon as I stepped out of the car, the air felt heavy, like the house was watching me. Have you ever gone somewhere and instantly felt like you shouldn't be there? That was the exact chill that ran down my spine as I walked up the creaky wooden porch. Tyler's parents greeted me briefly, then disappeared upstairs, leaving us kids alone. There were 4 of us, Tyler, me, Kevin, and Matt. We started with video games, but Tyler insisted we play something different once the night got darker. He suggested we head into the basement, where he claimed they kept something scary. The basement light flickered when we went down, the kind of dim yellow bulb that barely pushes back the darkness. Old furniture, boxes, and dusty shelves lined the walls. But in the center of the room was something strange, a circle drawn in chalk on the concrete floor. Inside it were small objects, coins, feathers, and a cracked porcelain doll. At first, I thought Tyler was just messing with us, but his face was serious. He said his older brother left it there after trying some kind of ritual last year. He wanted us to continue the game. I laughed nervously, but when I caught Kevin's uneasy stare and Matt's pale face, I realized none of us were comfortable. Yet none of us wanted to be the first to back down. Tyler challenged each of us to step into the circle and say our names out loud. He said if we did it right, they would answer. I wanted to brush it off, but my curiosity won. I stepped into the circle, heart pounding, and whispered my name. The basement went quiet. Too quiet. I swear, even the hum of the light stopped. Then, faintly, like it came from the concrete itself, I heard my name whispered back. It wasn't my voice, and it wasn't any of the others. It was deeper, stretched out, like someone was imitating me. I froze, my whole body trembling. Kevin laughed nervously, saying it was just an echo, but I knew what I heard. Matt refused to go next. Tyler, of course, insisted it was proof that the game worked. We argued, but before we could decide, something sharp clattered against the basement wall, like a coin thrown from the shadows. None of us had moved. We bolted up the stairs, desperate to leave the basement. But when Tyler pushed the door, it wouldn't budge. He twisted the knob, slammed his shoulder against it. Nothing. It was like it was sealed shut from the other side. At first, I thought maybe it was just stuck, but then Kevin tried. Then Matt. Each of us pulled and shoved, but the door refused to open. Panic started bubbling in my chest. I looked back at the basement. The chalk circle seemed darker now. The doll's cracked face turned slightly in our direction, though I swore no one had touched it. That's when the light bulb above us flickered violently before going out completely, leaving us in pitch black. The 4 of us pressed against the door, whispering, shouting, even pounding. But no one came to help. Imagine being locked in a basement like this. What's the first thing you do? The darkness made everything worse. I pulled out my flashlight, but the beam was weak, shaking as my hand trembled. In that moment, I heard it again, my name, this time louder, coming from behind the shelves. Kevin said he heard something too, his own name whispered in the same distorted voice. Matt swore someone was moving in the shadows. We huddled together, whispering furiously about what to do, but the fear in our voices gave us away. Then the shelves creaked, slowly, like something was brushing past them. The doll in the circle now faced us directly, though no one had touched it. My chest tightened as if the air had thinned out, like the basement didn't want us there anymore. I pointed my flashlight at the shelves. For a split second, I thought I saw a face, pale, hollow-eyed. Then it vanished. Tyler, trying to sound brave, yelled into the darkness, demanding whoever or whatever was there to leave us alone. His voice cracked halfway through. That's when we heard the reply. It wasn't loud. It was a whisper, but it came from everywhere at once. A single word, stay. Matt broke down, crying, begging to get out. Kevin kept muttering prayers under his breath. I tried the door again, even pounding until my fist hurt, but it was no use. Then Tyler pointed at the chalk circle, saying maybe if we finished the game, it would let us go. The idea of stepping back into that circle made my stomach twist, but we were out of options. The air was colder now. Every breath felt like it carried frost. We had no choice but to play along. One by one, we stepped into the circle again. Tyler went first, speaking his name louder this time. The whispers answered. Kevin went next, then Matt. When it was my turn, I barely managed to get my name out. The reply came instantly, but this time it laughed afterward. We stood there, shaking, when the voice gave us a command. Choose. None of us understood at first. Then the doll tipped over, landing on its face, cracking further. Tyler swore it meant one of us had to stay. Kevin refused. Matt screamed. I just stood frozen, unable to think. That's when the basement door suddenly flew open on its own. We didn't wait. We bolted up the stairs, through the living room, out the front door, and into the night. I never went back to Tyler's house again. And to this day, whenever I hear my name whispered in the dark, I wonder if we ever truly left that basement. You think the entity followed us out, or was it trapped in that house? Comment your theory. I was 15 when Jenna invited me and two other friends, Rachel and Marcus, to spend the weekend at her family's cabin. It was in the middle of the woods, miles from the nearest town. Her parents thought it would be a safe place for us to hang out while they stayed in the city. I remember being excited at first. A weekend with no parents around? It sounded like freedom. When we got there, though, I felt uneasy. The cabin was old, with chipped paint on the walls and windows that rattled even with the slightest breeze. It wasn't falling apart, but it had that kind of silence that felt heavy. The kind of silence that made your ears ring. Jenna kept reassuring us that the place was fine. She said her family had owned it for years and nothing bad had ever happened there. I smiled and went along, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were stepping into a place that didn't want us there. That night, after dinner, we spread out our sleeping bags in the living room. The plan was to stay up late watching movies, playing games, and telling ghost stories. But it wasn't long before the ghost stories started feeling too real. Around midnight, Marcus decided to scare us by turning off the lights and sneaking toward the window with a flashlight on his chin. We all laughed when he made a ridiculous face, but then he froze. He pressed his hand against the glass, staring outside. What is it? I asked. His silence made my stomach twist. Jenna walked over, nudged him, and looked too. Her face went pale. I stood up, heart pounding, and walked over. What I saw through that window still chills me. There was someone standing at the edge of the woods, not moving, not speaking, just standing there watching us. The trees swayed in the wind, but the figure didn't flinch. It was too far to see details, but we all knew it wasn't one of us playing a trick. Rachel pulled the curtains shut immediately, insisting it was probably just a hiker or hunter passing through. But none of us believed that. Who stands in the middle of the woods at midnight, staring at a cabin full of teenagers? We tried to shake it off, convincing ourselves that it was nothing. To calm down, we turned the lights back on and sat in a circle playing card games. For a while, it actually worked. We laughed, we teased each other, and for a moment, the fear faded. Then the scratching started. At first, it was faint, like a branch brushing against the side of the cabin. But as the minutes passed, it grew louder, more deliberate. It was moving slowly around the outside, circling the cabin. Marcus grabbed a flashlight and tried to look out through a crack in the curtain. He swore he saw movement, like someone crouching low near the wall. We told him to stop trying to scare us, but the sound was real. We could all hear it. The scratching moved from one side of the cabin to the other, pausing every so often as if whoever or whatever it was wanted us to know it was still there. Rachel wanted to call the police, but Jenna said her phone had no service. I checked mine, no bars either. The closest signal was miles away. We were trapped. Around 2 a.m, the scratching stopped. We sat frozen, straining our ears. The silence returned, but it wasn't comforting. It was worse. The kind of silence that makes your skin crawl, because you know it's only temporary. Then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, crunching on the gravel, just outside the cabin. One step, pause. Another step, pause. Each one grew louder, closer. I held my breath, terrified that whoever it was would try to come inside. Jenna whispered for us to stay quiet. Marcus clutched a fireplace poker like a weapon, while Rachel pulled her sleeping bag up to her chin. I sat there, every muscle in my body tensed, praying the steps would fade. But they didn't. They circled the cabin, stopping every so often at the windows. At one point, the footsteps stopped right outside the living room where we sat. I could see the shadow of something moving behind the thin curtain. Then, just as suddenly as they began, the footsteps stopped completely. We thought maybe it was over, that maybe the figure had finally gone. The air felt lighter for a moment, and I almost allowed myself to relax. But then tap, tap, tap. The sound came from the window right behind me. My whole body stiffened. It wasn't loud, but it was intentional. 3 soft knocks, spaced evenly apart. I turned slowly, and through the thin curtain, I saw the outline of a hand pressed against the glass. Jenna screamed, and Marcus lunged forward, yanking the curtain shut. Rachel was sobbing now, saying we had to leave. But leave where? The car was parked outside, right near the tree line, and whoever was out there could easily cut us off. We huddled together in the center of the room, arguing in frantic whispers about what to do. None of us wanted to be the first to open that door. Then came another knock, this time from a different window. At some point, exhaustion got the better of us. We stayed awake as long as we could, sitting together with every light on, jumping at every sound. But sometime after 4 a.m, I must have dozed off. When I opened my eyes, sunlight was streaming through the windows. The cabin looked exactly the same as the night before, except for one thing. On the glass of the living room window, in the morning light, I saw smudges. Fingerprints. Dozens of them, pressed against the outside as if someone had been leaning close, watching us all night long. Marcus checked the perimeter, but found no footprints, no sign of anyone. The ground was undisturbed. It was as if whoever or whatever was there had simply vanished with the night. We packed up quickly and left the cabin without looking back. Jenna never invited us again, and none of us ever spoke about that night in detail. But every so often, when I hear a knock at my own window late at night, I wonder if it followed us home. Do you think it was a person messing with us, or something far worse? Comment your theory. When I turned 13, I begged my parents to let me host my first real sleepover. They agreed, and soon my living room was filled with balloons, pizza boxes, and the laughter of 5 of my closest friends. Everything felt perfect. I remember thinking it was the happiest night of my life. We spent the evening playing games, eating too much candy, and daring each other to tell scary stories. The lights were dim, the mood was lighthearted, and for once, I felt like nothing bad could possibly happen. It was my birthday, it was supposed to be special, but when the clock crept past midnight, something changed. The air in the room felt colder, and the laughter slowly died down as if we all sensed it at once. Even the candles we had lit on the table flickered strangely, the flames bending in a way I couldn't explain. I told myself it was just the wind coming through the windows. But deep down, I felt something else had joined the party, something none of us invited. One of my friends, Olivia, suggested we play a game she had seen online. She said it was called the mirror game. The rules were simple. You stand in front of a mirror in the dark, call your name 3 times, and wait to see if your reflection does something different. I laughed it off, but of course, my friends dared me to go first since it was my birthday. Not wanting to look scared, I agreed. We set up a tall mirror in the hallway, turned off all the lights, and gathered around. I stood there, staring at my faint reflection. My friends giggled behind me, whispering for me to hurry up. With a shaky voice, I said my name once, twice, 3 times. For a moment, nothing happened. I almost sighed in relief until my reflection blinked. The problem was I hadn't. I stumbled back, gasping, swearing I saw it clearly. My reflection blinked half a second after me, as if it were a separate person. My friends laughed nervously, saying I must have imagined it, but I knew what I saw. Olivia, of course, wanted to try next. She loved being the center of attention, and she wasn't going to let me steal the spotlight with what she thought was a joke. She stood in front of the mirror, smirking, and called her name 3 times. We waited in silence. Nothing happened at first. Then Olivia tilted her head to the left, and her reflection tilted to the right. At the exact same time, we all gasped. Olivia's smile disappeared instantly, and she stepped back, insisting it was just a trick of the light. But none of us wanted to test it again. We carried the mirror back into the storage closet, shoved it inside, and shut the door. The rest of the night, Olivia avoided eye contact with me. Later, she admitted, in a whisper, that when she looked at her reflection, it felt like someone else was looking back. That was the moment I realized the game wasn't a joke. After putting the mirror away, we tried to get back to normal, cake, movies, anything to distract us. For a while, it worked. The fear faded into background, like maybe we had overreacted, but then came the knocking. It was faint at first, a single tap against the closet door where we'd hidden the mirror. We all froze. None of us were near it. The knocks came again, louder this time, in a steady rhythm. Rachel suggested it was just the house settling, but we knew better. Houses don't knock, especially not from inside a closet. I wanted to open the door and prove it was nothing, but I couldn't make myself move. The fear rooted me to the floor. The knocking stopped after a few minutes, but the damage was done. None of us could relax after that. The party atmosphere was gone. We sat in silence, waiting for something else to happen. Eventually, everyone tried to settle down to sleep. The living room was dark, except for a single candle I had left burning on the table. Its warm glow was supposed to comfort me, but instead, it drew my attention to the shadows dancing on the walls. I was just drifting off when I noticed something strange. One of the shadows didn't move with the candlelight. It stood still, tall and thin, in the corner of the room. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but then the shadow started moving toward me, slow and deliberate. I sat up, heart hammering, whispering to Olivia to look, but when she opened her eyes, the shadow was gone. The candle flickered wildly, then snuffed itself out. The room plunged into darkness. I wanted to scream, but the fear choked me. I knew something was in that room with us, watching. The rest of the night was a blur of fear. We heard footsteps in the hallway, faint whispers we couldn't make out, and once, the sound of something scratching the floor right next to our sleeping bags. None of us slept. When the morning finally came, sunlight poured in, and we all sat up, exhausted and pale. The first thing I noticed was the closet door. It was wide open. None of us had touched it. The mirror was leaning against the wall, uncovered, facing the room. But the worst part, my birthday cake, which had been left half-eaten on the table, now had a single candle relit, burned almost all the way down. Someone or something had lit it while we slept. We packed up quickly, and everyone left earlier than planned. No one mentioned the mirror, the knocking, or the shadow, but I've never forgotten it. Birthdays haven't felt the same since. You think we accidentally invited something into that house, or was it already there waiting for us? I was 16 when my friends dared me to spend the night in an abandoned house at the edge of town. Everyone called it the Redmond House, though no one really knew who lived there last. The windows were broken, the roof sagged, and graffiti covered the walls. People whispered about strange lights seen inside at night, but no one ever stayed long enough to find out the truth. At first, I laughed it off, but then Marcus, my closest friend, said, "Come on, it's just an old house. Let's prove there's nothing to be scared of." Against my better judgment, I agreed. We packed snacks, flashlights, and sleeping bags, and just before dusk, we slipped inside through a broken back door. The air was thick with dust, and every step echoed as if the house itself was listening. Peeling wallpaper hung like loose skin from the walls. The wooden floors groaned under our weight, and I swear the whole place smelled like rot and rust. Part of me wanted to back out right then, but my pride wouldn't let me. I wasn't about to be the first to quit. We decided to explore before setting up camp. The house had 2 floors, and the staircase was barely standing with broken rails and missing steps. Every creak felt like it might send us crashing down. When we reached the upper floor, we found 4 rooms, each in worse shape than the last. One had a broken bed frame, another had a pile of old newspapers from decades ago, and the third had shattered glass scattered across the floor. But it was the 4th room that unsettled us most. The wallpaper there wasn't peeled away. It looked fresh, almost new, in sharp contrast to the rest of the house. On the wall, written in what looked like charcoal, were dozens of handprints, small like a child's. Some overlapped, some stretched upward, as if reaching for the ceiling. Marcus laughed nervously and said it was probably vandals, but I could see his hands shaking. No one wanted to linger there, so we headed back downstairs, but I couldn't shake the image of those small, reaching hands. We set up our sleeping bags in what must have once been the living room. The broken fireplace was cold and lifeless, but we lit a few candles for light. The flickering glow made the shadows stretch long across the walls, making the house feel alive. We tried telling jokes, playing cards, even daring each other to explore the basement, but no one had the courage to open that door. As the hours dragged on, the atmosphere grew heavier, the silence broken only by the wind pushing against broken windows. Around midnight, we heard it, a faint sound upstairs. It wasn't the wind, it was footsteps, slow, deliberate, pacing back and forth across the floor above us. We froze. The four of us stared at each other, waiting for someone to say it was just the house settling. But the steps were too clear, too human. Whoever was up, there was moving with intent. None of us dared go upstairs. Instead, we sat in silence, praying the footsteps would fade. Eventually, they did. But the relief was short-lived, because then came another sound. A slow creak from the basement door. The door was closed when we first arrived. Now it was half open, swaying slightly as if someone had just slipped inside. The darkness beyond it seemed endless, swallowing the flicker of our candles. Marcus insisted we shut it, but none of us wanted to go near it. The air seeping from that doorway was cold, damp, and smelled of earth and mildew. It felt wrong, like standing at the mouth of a cave that led straight down into the ground. Finally, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped closer, my hand trembling as I pushed the door shut. The moment the latch clicked, something pounded from the other side. 3 heavy knocks that shook the wood. We all screamed, stumbling back. We thought about leaving right then, but Marcus begged us to stay. He said if we left, everyone at school would call us cowards. Against my instincts, I stayed. That decision still haunts me. We sat in a tight circle, whispering nervously, when Rachel gasped and pointed at the window. I turned, and my blood ran cold. Pressed against the broken glass was a face. Pale, grayish, with hollow eyes that seemed to sink into its skull. It wasn't moving, just staring at us with a wide, unnatural grin. I blinked, and it was gone. Vanished like it had never been there. But the impression on the foggy glass remained, as if the face had left its mark. Marcus swore it was just our imagination, but none of us believed that. The house was no longer just creepy. It was alive, and it knew we were there. We couldn't take it anymore. The footsteps upstairs had returned. The basement door rattled on its hinges, and every shadow seemed to move closer. It felt like the house was collapsing in on us. We grabbed our bags and bolted for the back door. As we ran, I swear I heard laughter echoing through the halls, high-pitched, childlike, but distorted, as if dozens of voices overlapped. My legs burned, but I didn't stop until we were outside in the cold night air. When we reached the street, gasping for breath, we turned back to look. The house stood silent, still as if mocking us. But in one of the upstairs windows, I saw movement. A curtain shifted, and a small hand pressed against the glass, leaving a print that slowly faded. We never went back. No one spoke about what happened after that night. But sometimes when I walk near that part of town, I swear I hear footsteps behind me, slow, deliberate, matching my pace. Do you think the house let us leave, or did something follow us out? Comment your thoughts below.